You are watching Stellar.
Well, you're watching Stellar and you're watching me, Jim McCarthy. I'm the CEO of Stellar, and we're here today to talk about Spotlight on Success with a couple of guys that I think you're going to find super interesting on a topic that I think just maybe created during the pandemic, but this has a long shelf life to it, and we're going to talk all about that. And we're talking about virtual readings, which is one way of thinking about conversations that happen online. It gives you access, it gives you new information, it gives you all kinds of great opportunities, both as a creator, but also, of course, as a fan. So the people I'd like to introduce you, the people that are my guests today, I would love to introduce you to both of them. I'll start with the first one. That makes sense, right? The first one has been, our first guest has been the recipient of 8 Tony Awards. That's 8 more than I have. As lead producer for productions like August Osage County, The Gershons, Porgy and Bess, All the Way, Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Glengarry Glen Ross, Spring Awakening, Hair, and co-lead producer of The Pajama Game. He's won 6 Drama Desk Awards, which is 6 more than I have, 4 New York Drama Critics Circle Awards, which is 3 more than I have. I'm just kidding, it's 4 more than I have. Lead produced over 50 shows. The list is too long to recount, but as recently as the shortened 2019-2020 season, he had 2 shows. He's got shows kind of coming up for 2022 that I'll let him tell you all about. And he is the producer of Spotlight on Plays, 17 plays, and an upcoming major musical event to benefit the Actors Fund. Please welcome Jeffrey Richards. Jeffrey, how you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you very much for that. Very exciting introduction.
It was very exciting.
Self-talk. I don't know.
This may be you may be the most awarded person we've had on this series, so that's good. And that in itself is like another award.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to getting it. Is it the Jim McCarthy Award? No, the Stellar Award. It's the Stellar Award.
Jim McCarthy Award for the most awards on the Spotlight on Success series for the month of May 2021. I don't know.
I'm fortunate to be here, and I'm certainly been thrilled with the fact that we've done this special spring series now on Stellar. It's been a very positive collaboration, and I'm very grateful for it.
That's awesome, and as are we. All right, let's bring in our second guest, who is a recognized leader in so many things, including innovative marketing, social media, web design, video production for theater, has worked on hundreds of Broadway, off-Broadway, and West End shows, and major events like the Tony Awards, the Olivier Awards. He's the founder of Super Awesome Friends, which if you said to me, someone founded a digital and content experience company dedicated to roughly in the theater space, and it's called Super Awesome Friends. Who do you think the founder is? I would have said that it's him. He was the deputy head of content and digital media for the Society of London Theatre. And he's also, this is something I think we'll have to take a couple of minutes, even though it's slightly off topic, the co-founder of Miracle on 22nd Street, which is going to be actually the story of this organization is going to be a movie written by Tina Fey. But anyway, definitely a guy with so much to talk about, so much to share with you, Jim Glaub. Jim, buddy.
Oh my God, Jim! Thank you so much. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Jim.
Jim, I haven't seen you in person in so long, but I knew that you'd be wearing a brooch.
You always got to accessorize. Got to have
That's
a
right.
piece just in case you run out of things to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, we will cover that, I feel sure. Anyway, we're here to talk today about what you all have done collaboratively with Spotlight on Plays, and to share what learnings from that, patterns that people can use, creators and other people considering this kind of activity, what it's done for you, how you got there. Well, why don't we just start with the origin story? What is Spotlight on Plays, and how did it get going?
I think it got going kind of accidentally last spring when I found myself in late April with very little to do, and though Broadway had been advertised initially as coming back in April 12th and then on May 9th, that wasn't about to happen. And I just thought it would be great if we could have virtual productions, presentations, as it were, of 3 plays in in the spring, and we did 3 plays, which was November, and one of the quickest plays that we did within a period of like 3 days, I think, with John Malkovich and Patti LuPone. And then we followed that with the original cast of Significant Other doing that play, and then Bryan Cranston and Sally Field doing Love Letters. And we had a good time doing it. And then I thought, it might be great if we could have a season in the fall. And then that happened. And then we had a season in the spring. And basically, it would not have, happened without 2 people who were really very key players in this. And Jim with Super Awesome Friends, who lent his expertise in all the technical elements of putting together and the editing and the filming of it. And then my producing partner, Jacob Sorokin Porter, who was instrumental in terms of helping in all facets of the production, and is the line producer of all of the presentations that we've done.
And Jim, what was how did tell your story of coming into this? And
yeah, well, it's interesting because it's now, I mean, we've done together, Jeff, 17 productions, I believe that it has been. And when Jeff called at first, he was like, I want to help. Let's do these, let's do these benefits for the Actors Fund. Jeff, you've been involved with the Actors Fund for many, many years. And this seemed like a way that we can help immediately. And yeah, so he was like, I've got the plays, I've got the access to the actors, did a ton of back end work and getting it organized. And then he was like, okay, how are we going to film it? How are we going to do this? And so that's where I was like, okay, we can jump in. I can help with this. And
it was like Mickey and Judy. I don't know who's who, and just let's put on a show. We'll do it. We did it.
It really was. And I mean, and it was amazing the amount of goodwill right at the beginning of the pandemic, how we were able to everyone was so patient with us. I mean, this is a brand new form. It's not theater and it's not movies. It's sort of this hybrid of what's happening in between. And so a lot of these amazing actors and directors and writers have been so patient with us as we all figure out the best process to build something which I consider a brand new medium.
Yeah, talk more about that. I mean, this is a term I use all the time, that we're actually at the birth of a new medium, that it isn't just about taking what we've got, on a stage and putting a camera in front of it, or cameras. It's really about designing a live thing that actually occurs on a screen, more primarily, or at least in large part occurs on a screen. So what is that for you as you look forward, Jim? What do you think that new medium is all about?
Well, I think the pandemic had to force us into the niche of this being sort of remote and working remotely in regards to the type of content that we make. But I don't think that's going away now that we all know how to do it. We all know how to open up Zoom. We all know how to do live streams. We all know we've been sort of communicating now in this format for quite some time, I think around 14 months. And so I don't think it's going away. I think it'll just evolve into a hybrid of this sort of live and virtual. Like how I see a world in which we have virtual productions, but they are happening simultaneously and streamed together, But I think that there's a ton of opportunity to make new roads into this medium. And, it's just so exciting that Jeff and Jacob and also my associate Rebecca and my team really felt they saw something that was like a need and filled it. And it's been pretty fantastic to see.
Yeah, Jeffrey, when you think about why these shows have had appeal, can we talk about it and maybe just for those who haven't seen one of these, well, they can see one tonight because there's one coming up tonight. So you can certainly do that. But if they haven't seen it, describe what it's like and describe, I guess, why you think people enjoy and have wanted to see these.
There are 2 elements to that. One is, I think it's like being at a reading, at a very theatrical reading, that when you are working on a production, one of the first things that happens is reading. You sit around the table and you sort of feel as an insider. Partners of mine on productions, attend these readings. And what you're seeing is also the essence of a play. And you're seeing it at a very reasonable price. To see the play itself is the entree, and you have actors interpreting the play with the director who's spoken to them beforehand. But what you don't have are the appetizers and the dessert and all the surroundings, which are like, the costumes, the lighting, the scenery, the sound. So your imagination is being stimulated by hearing the words of the playwright interpreted by the actors, and you're designing everything in your mind. So it's, like when you read a book to a certain extent and you meet characters and they live for you, and you read about their surroundings and you visualize the surroundings and you visualize what they're wearing from what the author is saying. So this medium offers the people who are seeing it the opportunity to enrich their imaginations and let their imaginations say, oh, how would that character look? Or where is that? What is that house like? Etc. It isn't presentational like when you go to the theater. But what it is it's inspirational to you to exercise your imagination about everything else. But you've got the entree. You just don't have the appetizers or the desserts or the side dishes. That imagination has to support.
That's interesting.
I love that.
The side dishes. I know who doesn't love a good side dish, but you're right. The main thing is still being served up. Jim, Jeffrey was just talking about the idea of feeling like an insider when you have access to this. And I would say that's interesting, but also even more so because the names that have been involved, the names that have been associated with these readings are also, sort of a window into some talent that it might be hard to get that kind of an intimate, look in with people like this.
Oh yeah, never before have we had so much access into the homes of our celebrities and our politicians and our newscasters. Like, we know everything. We know what they look like. Like, we know what their backgrounds are. We're looking around for it, and it's interesting because we work with, no one size fits all for these shows, because every director, every playwright, and every cast has a different vision for what they want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So it's really fun when a director, what happened tonight at the Sisters Rosenzweig, Anna D. Shapiro wanted to say, she wanted people to say, look, these are great actors. We want this to feel like you're invited in their home, and like that you get to hear this amazing play, and that they're reading it to you, and it's, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, come over to the house, and mm-hmm. we'll read an amazing play by Wendy Wasserstein. So like that's the spirit of this of especially tonight's show. Now, there are definitely others that are more curated and more in the movie sense, where it's like strict backgrounds and like placement and mm-hmm. coloring and editing tricks, and there's tons of things. But that's one of the things I loved about tonight was Anna's perspective, and it was genius to have Jeff, to have you bring Anna on to do this, because it was her vision on this has been really, really lovely, as she has worked with you many times in this aspect.
Absolutely. We were talking before we got started, Jeffrey, about musicals, and so when you guys have a musical, how does that work? Is there actual music, or do you kind of like, and then there's a song? Okay, back to.
Jim should address all of the technological elements that go into doing the kind of production that we're doing. We're doing a show called Show of Titles, and what it is, we have between 25 and 30 songs, title songs from musicals, and this was inspired by the fact that from 1959 to 1969, there may have been close to 65 original title songs for musicals, but from 2009 to 2019, there are only like 15 original title songs. So maybe it's a vanishing art form, we don't know, but everybody who has participated has really enjoyed doing this, because they're all great title songs, whether they played one night, as a show called Dance a Little Closer did, and Glenn Close is doing that title song, or whether it was a show like Oklahoma, which Patrick Wilson is recreating his Tony nominated performance in a revival. And Oklahoma, for a long time, was the longest running musical in Broadway history for a period of 20 years, approximately. So we have a whole variety of title songs, and it's challenging. Jim, you should address this because of the music involved. And
yeah, Jim, as you know, there's because of Wi-Fi latency and where we are in our present state of streams, you can't actually do music together. Now, there are softwares that's being developed and are developing that actually you can do limited amounts of music in a room with performers. But for the most part, for live musicals, it can't be done as well as it needs to be done. So
when people are separate in separate locations,
right? When they're in separate locations and remotely, and you're trying to do a music or a musical scene, it has to be done separately. So the tracks need to be done in advance. They can sing to the tracks live, and then that track is then composited with either they can edit. We can edit to that piece with essentially the actor can lip sync, or we can take it, they could film it, and it's done together as a sort of live presentation of that musical number. But it could never be truly live because of the Wi-Fi latency and the issues in regards to music and performance. So what we do is we try to think of it as more like music videos, and that's what's going to happen with Show of Titles. And the incredible Lonnie Price has put together amazing vision for each of these songs based off of Jeff's amazing ideas for the title songs, as well as the performers that will be singing it. So it'll be just like this amazing smorgasbord of beautiful songs that we all love and know, and it feels like you're watching a beautiful music videos with a variety of different styles and presentations that represent the show best.
It's pretty great. I mean, you're right. The speed of the internet still isn't. It's really the connectivity. I hope 5G solves that problem, because one of the things that you get from this, it's I think it's interesting when you think about online presentations. We're now at the point where it's easier for people to actually come together to do a performance that goes out online, but relative to the past for COVID reasons. But there's something about being able to say to people, performers in a show, like, stay where you are, and you can do it there too. That's probably, I would think, part of the reason that you've been able to get the kind of talent you've been able to get is you don't have to ask them to travel somewhere in order to do it.
No, it's so true, and it's been interesting a bit. I've been working on a couple of other pre-Broadway trial shows in the worlds of musicals, and it's interesting because they wouldn't have been able to get the talent all that they wanted because it was all done remotely. So they were able to get talent all over the place. And there's been shows, Jeff, that we've done that there was one show, I think we had someone in Poland, Australia, London, California, and New York being filmed all at the same time. Was that Best Man, Jeff? Where was it that everybody was all over the world?
In Scotland, I think. Grace Van Patten was down in Australia.
Yeah.
And Lucas Hedges was in This Is Our Youth. Was the play. Lucas Hedges was on Long Island, I think. And so we were able to do it. One of the interesting things, of course, is that hopefully this will widen the audience for theater in the future. This is not that much different probably when Metropolitan used to broadcast operas to people who were not able to go to see operas in major cities. And I think WQXR did it for years and years, and I don't know whether it was carried throughout the country, and probably was at some point. But for people who are not in New York, and it's the opportunity to see stars interpreting plays. And it's also something whereby plays could have a whole new life, because if you are a resident theater director somewhere, or if you're somebody tuning in, it might inspire you to think about doing this play again and doing it live within your community, or within, at a small community theater or at a regional theater somewhere. Or a Broadway producer can see a play and say, oh my God, I now see this. I want to revive this on Broadway. Also, we've done some new plays, and sometimes there's been interest in taking those plays to the next step. And it might be a way in the future for people as benefits for the Actors Fund, where artists will lend their talents to doing these works, and producers will see them and say, oh, after the 4 days that they're on Stellar, they'll say, look, I think I'd like to see this fully realized in a production. And it might be in sort of like, in a way, like having you could consider it like when they have workshops and invite a lot of people within the community to see a show and engender a lot of enthusiasm and raise funds for it. So people may look at this also as that kind of an opportunity. And it's also a beneficial opportunity because it doesn't take up that much time from the artists who are doing the shows. It takes up more time for people like Jacob Porter in my office and Rebecca Prowler and Jim Glaub at Super Awesome Friends. That takes up a lot of time. But actors get to do roles that they might not necessarily want to do. And if they do new work, it's something that might inspire them to come to Broadway in a play. And it might inspire people seeing it to say, oh, I want to go see this play eventually. We don't know what the future holds, but it just opens up a whole new avenue. And that avenue isn't necessarily Avenue Q or Avenue X, but maybe Avenue Super Awesome Friends. We don't know.
Well, and I want to echo to the awesomeness that you have done in regards to this, because I think that, it's so nice to hear voices like Larissa Fasthorse, who launched this season with her play, the Thanksgiving play. And, it's amazing to have an Indigenous writer involved with this. It's amazing to see an up-and-coming director like Liliana Blaine Cruz, who is going to be a next big Broadway director. And, Jeff, you gave, at this point, Camille A. Brown's first play direction with her production of Angry, Raucous, and Shamelessly Gorgeous. So, and Robert O'Hara did, Barbecue. And all of these shows are sort of getting a second wave of excitement because of this platform. So kudos to you, Jeff, on sort of creating a new, what I don't know sports, but I keep calling it the farm team.
Whatever you want to call it, I'll accept whatever kudos you want to send my way. And that's fine. But also, have to go to the fact that everybody has been so cooperative and so collaborative. And I think that, if we hadn't had this terrible time over the past 15 months, this would not have happened. But it's given so many artists the opportunity to have a fling at doing something new and different, sometimes with new plays, or to revisit a play that has been done before. Like tonight, the Sisters Rosenzweig, coming up, Audra McDonald doing Ohio State Murders. And then there's a relatively new play that Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline are doing, Dear Elizabeth. Now, these artists can't commit the kind of time that might be expected for commercial productions, and they have other obligations with television, with film, with cable, with so much. But these are the kind of roles that actors cherish and to get their teeth into, and they expose the writing of very talented new writers as well as classic writers to an audience that may not be able to go to the theater, but they want to support the theater, and that's important.
Let's talk about audience building for this. So you've done 17 of or Jim, you said you've been involved in 17. What's the total number?
produces, yeah, it's been 17 productions.
17. So
Yeah.
as you go along, obviously the titles may attract a slightly different audience, but I'm assuming that a big part of what this has done, because you've done it over a period of time with a couple of seasons, is that you've just built an audience for this that's interested in whatever you've got coming up next. Is that true? And how do you go about doing that?
I think we've done that. I think the audience has grown. I think one of the helpful elements to that has been that we did a subscription series for the spring series, and that was 7 plays, and it was very, very reasonably priced at $49 for the 7 plays that we did. And fortunately, a lot of people who have supported these plays and who have had input about what we've done have been people that I've worked with within the business and partners on many productions. But the subscription was very helpful because it's built, it's sustained interest for them. And I think that when we come back again and look towards the future, I think hopefully these people will repeat. We do not know what the future holds. Right now, everybody is so excited, as are we, from coming back with the live theater. But I think there's synergy here that should be explored in the future. And the future, not necessarily is me, but it's people like Jim Glaub, it's people like Jacob Porter, who are the new generation and bringing their talent to this and their ideas, because we've worked with a lot of younger people on this, much younger than I am. But for example, the directors, as Jim has mentioned, Liliana Blaine Cruz, Danya Tamor, Lila Neugebauer, these are all new voices in the theater. In addition to experienced veterans like Kenny Leon, and people like Felicia Rashad, who has directed a play for us and will be directing a play on Broadway next year or up at the Apollo called Blue. But in other words, I'm impressed by all of the people who embrace technology, because I am totally inept.
Well, it has been the great pivot, hasn't it? And Jim, congratulations to you on the pivot as well to Stellar Tickets and Stellar Events, because it's such a testament to your brilliance in this, because I think it's exactly what we needed. This sort of new genre, this new idea of streaming, and that there is a way to monetize it, and that there is a way to say that theater is not going anywhere, that this is just in addition to, this is theater adjacent, and we can't be more happy to be involved with it. Also, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Situation who helped us get this going, and Ryan and Martin have been fantastic about making sure all of this gets done.
Absolutely, and always. I look at it as really it's there's a lot of things we love about theater in person, but there's also, anybody who's in the business knows, there's a lot of pretty serious limitations on live entertainment as a business model. It's really hard to get reach, it's hard to get scale. You get to your break-even point, and then just as things are getting really good, you hit your capacity and start over with another show. And so there's a lot of real limitations on that. One of the most frustrating things for me as a live entertainment marketer has always been that the first step in any marketing plan is to eliminate 99.5% of the people who might be interested in your show, because they're not going to physically be, in the city that the show's in. And so, from my point of view, this is about a medium that breaks some of those limitations and adds it as a capability really to what live entertainment marketers can do and live entertainment producers can do. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Stellar affords us the opportunity of having a universal setting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That reach out, that these presentations can reach out from the particular environment to the universal environment. And what's hopeful here is that people who are not necessarily in major cities and maybe in smaller cities see theater and say, I would like to go see something live as a result of this. Hopefully, we will broaden the audience and we make it accessible, because when you go out to do a live entertainment, and this is what motion pictures are going to find with the return of cinemas, as opposed to sitting at home and watching a movie at home, it's a different experience when you go to a theater. It's a more complete experience. But watching something and the essence of something at home, unvarnished, with people who may not go, the stars that may not do it in the theater, may encourage you to go to see a play or a musical. That's what we can hope for.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's true. As you mentioned, the opera, the Met's been doing this for a number of years, and then of course the National Theatre in the UK has been doing this for a number of years, and their data really suggests that when people consume one of these shows virtually, they're more likely to come to the show in person rather than less. I think it's a big marketing tool that's out there and available for people.
And Jim, what's very important for the theater community, and Jim Glaub and Jacob Porter, and you consistently remind me, is how we have to reach out and give in to BIPOC audiences. And this is a very affordable introduction. Imagine the stars that if you would subscribe to see our series from the beginning, from Keanu Reeves up through Kevin Kline and Meryl Streep, if you had purchased a subscription at $49, you would be introduced to theater if you're a member, if you're a young Black person, a young Latino person, a young Asian American person, you know, that you might not have seen, be able to see in the theater at this point, but it exposes you to this cultural entity. And so I think that's a very positive thing. We're making it hopefully more accessible for people, BIPOC people, to have a theatrical experience and say, okay, this is something that I can understand. This is something that I can enjoy. This is something that could be of interest to me down the line, and that hopefully they will go out then and want to see live theater.
Well, I hope everyone does that, of course. I hope everyone does both. I hope everyone does plenty of both, is my feeling. Okay, Jim, I'm gonna take a little detour if I can, because I actually didn't know. I know the main story of this, but I did not know about the movie. So can we talk about Miracle on 22nd Street just for a minute, just because it's so interesting? Is that all right?
No, I don't even know if I've ever told you about this.
A really unusual thing happened to you some years ago when you first lived in New York, and it turned into a bunch of other stuff, and now it sounds like it's turning into even something else. Can you just give us a capsule of the whole thing? Like, it's so interesting that
okay, because it does help families in need. But yeah, so about now over 10 years ago, my then partner and I actually received all these random letters to Santa delivered to our apartment in Chelsea.
And did you figure out why you were receiving them?
No. They still come. They still come to the apartment. Like I don't live there anymore, but they still come. And it caused this like flurry of activity. It was all over like a friend of ours documented the experience, and then it was on the New York Times, and it became this big viral story essentially. And then what happened, what was birthed out of that was Miracle on 22nd Street, a nonprofit organization that connects families in need with real life elves. So essentially we just say for kids who are in need, families that are in need, they can have their sort of Christmas adopted, and they can, essentially have the things that they need for that year. Most of it's usually clothes and toys and things like that. But the fun part about it is that the story was picked up by none other than the fabulous Tina Fey, who is writing a movie about the experience, and has been picked up by Universal, and it was supposed to come out this last year, but they hadn't. The pandemic pushed everything off. So yeah, that's just a fun little.
How many? I'm just curious. How many letters were you getting? Like, legitimately, was it a couple of dozen, or was it like a couple of thousand, or like what was the volume on that? Was it?
It just depends on the year. Like that first year we had over like 400 letters, and then the next year was like 200, and then the next year was like 4, and then the next year was like 30, and then another 400 letters came, and then
Amazing.
and you know the people that live there now. She's an amazing young woman who is like she's a New York model. She gets the letters and she brings them over to us, and we scan them and put them on our website, Miracle on 22nd Street, and they get fulfilled. And last year we helped over 500 families in New York City and across the country. It was pretty cool. It's all very random, and like it's my definitely active service along with these benefit readings for the Actors Fund. So it's great.
Kind of amazing, and I just wish I knew how. I'm sure you've asked this a million times. Like, how in the world did this start? Like, why are these letters?
I think it's weird. Like 22nd Street, between 8th and 9th, is actually where I lived, was where Clement Clark Moore lived, and he wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" back in the 1800s. And a lot of people thought he was Santa Claus, and so that it could be that. Also, it could be just a guy that lived there who did this weird program. And
isn't that interesting?
But I guess the whole thing has just been kind of lovely because it does really help do a lot of good for New York City youths, and now we're going to do a lot more next year. And so yeah, lots of good stuff. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and I guess we'll just find out who plays Jim Glaub in the movie. We'll find that out as time
Jeff
goes on.
Richards. It'll be Jeff.
I heard it was Ryan, who is your doppelganger, Jim.
Wait, who?
Ryan Gosling, I heard was.
Thank you.
That was going to be my guess. Well, we're coming toward the end here today, and I wanted to spend a few minutes. I wanted to give you guys each a few minutes to really give advice to people who might be watching now or watching later on replay. When they look at what they have, in terms of assets, access to people who are performers, access to content, and they want to put something like this together, what advice would you give them? Maybe you could talk about how to start. You could talk about how to market, whatever you think is most important. Like, it feels like there are a lot of people who could see some of the same opportunities that you guys have seen and actually make it a reality. So in the last few minutes, Jim and Jeffrey, maybe each of you, what advice would you give?
Well, I would, first thing would be to identify a play that you want to do, and then reach into, let's say you're doing it in your community. If there's a community theater or a resident theater there with actors, is identify the artists that you want to do them, and the director who may come from one of those community theaters or resident theaters to do it, and then find somebody like Jim Glaub and super awesome friends who can help you actually physically do the production, take care of the technology, take care of the editing, take care of all of those very important elements as you go forward. And that's just the beginning part of it. So Jim can pick up the rest now if you'd like.
Yeah, I think for us, the thing that I always recommend is to find things that work with, like, lean into this technology, lean into what is specific about it. Like, if there's a background that works for the show, use that. If there's props around, use it. Like, be very, the imagination is not going away. You use your imagination in theater as well. And I do think that in this format, that will still be a thing that is there. But I think that it's about also capturing and making sure that you capture enough of it. Like, do it enough and then capture it enough, because the last thing you want is not to have anything to be able to back up on. I also say is have someone be very strict about script supervision. It could be anyone in the group or whatever, just to be making sure that, like, you've captured everything and that you've worked everything, and then really give yourself time for the mess ups, because what ends up happening is that technology really does. Everybody's knowledge of technology is so different. So you need to allow for time for people to mess up and be okay with the fact that they're going to mess up. And that is not just on the production side of things, but also in post-production, because a lot of the times things will mess up. You'll upload something and it'll be a completely glitchy file, or YouTube will be down that day and you need to come up with the streaming. I think I told you this, Jeff, the day of our premiere for Love Letters, was the day that famously YouTube went down. And it was like Bryan Cranston and Sally Field, we had to completely pivot and switch to Vimeo because YouTube was down that day. So it's like you have to just be prepared for anything and try not to get too upset or worried about it. Know that it's going to work out, but it is just be prepared for anything.
I mean, it's not that different with inside the theater, right? There's any number of things that could go wrong.
It reminds me, if I may share an anecdote, working with one of the great actors, and John Malkovich, and there was an incident that happened on opening night with a sofa moving that we thought had been, taken care of, that it slid, and so he had to slide with it, and the director of the production went backstage, David Mamet, and he was saying, "Oh, this is, I feel A, B, and C was going through this." And the production team, and John said, "It's live theater. You just go with it." And David smiled and said yes. So it was
Absolutely
a wonderful exchange. But this is sort of what
that is.
Technology is.
Yep.
While this isn't live theater, we're dealing with live technology, live internet. We don't know what's going to happen, and you just go with it.
Yeah, it's a new set of uncertainties, but it's the same idea, right? I mean, like it's a new kind of things that you have to be able to adjust to. But this is what I'm talking about. Jim, I actually wonder what you think when you think about not necessarily play readings, when you think about the uses of online presentation for live entertainment and theater specifically, 5 years from now, what do you imagine?
Well, I think it will be more like, I imagine a world in which the theater is probably streaming one or two of their performances. Because right now the unions won't even allow for this, but eventually they will, and they'll stream one or two performances, maybe for special audiences. Like, can you imagine Wednesday matinees being streamed into schools across the country live like that? I see being that the school pays for, and that they sort of do that. I see a world in which that could be done for, like, army bases across the world, right? We're streaming a live production for our troops wherever, right? So like I think that there's just going to be hybrid model. I also think the talkback will go digital, and that will be something that will happen, where it's like you will have your actors maybe backstage, you could have a moderator on Zoom, you can have audience members all tune in after the show, and it can be a part of this sort of conversation. And I do think that workshopping a show at the very early stage, I don't think it will when you're getting further on, but like at the very initial stage, if you do it in this format, I've talked to and worked with many directors who really like this because they can see it, and then they don't need the actors anymore. They can edit based off of the video, right? Then they move things around, they try it, they treat it like a movie, and then it becomes a building block for something that they're like, okay, now let's get into the theater and let's do a real workshop, right? So I think there's models for this to work.
Very good. Well, we've talked about a few things that are coming up, including tonight and a couple weeks from now. But why don't you guys just give me the rundown real quick so everybody knows? I want everyone to know what they should go see.
Sisters Rosenzweig tonight and tomorrow night.
You have 4 days to watch it.
4 days to watch it. And then Ohio State Murders with Audra McDonald and Ben Rappaport. And then
third
show of titles, which has Glenn Close and Jake Gyllenhaal and Annalee Ashford and Vanessa Williams and Leslie Uggams and Bryan Cranston and John Leguizamo.
Literally everyone. Just everyone.
It's too bad you guys couldn't get any notable names for that one.
No, literally everyone is in the show. There's everyone.
And then we're concluding the season with Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline doing Dear Elizabeth. And
that's on June 17th.
Everybody to tune in. And next spring, watch for Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Rockwell and Darren Criss on Broadway in American Buffalo. So there you go.
Excellent. Very good. And I think we have a link to all that stuff in the chat, and we'll probably put it in the show notes for this too for everybody. So thank you guys for being part of this. I hope everybody got something out of it. I know I did. And I think I'm going to tune in tonight for the show. Why not?
Oh, it's so funny. This is a really funny.
I hope you buy your ticket on Stellar.
I will. I will.
Yeah.
All right. Jeffrey, thank you very much. Jim, thank you very much. It was great to speak to you. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.